North Carolina to see if it works for a Section 8 renter. Now, obviously, I'm not doing any crime data. You guys can look that up yourself today. And obviously, it's very neighborhood by neighborhood, right? But today, I'm just filtered out two-bedroom properties that are townhouse or condos in North Carolina because I've been getting sent deals in North Carolina pretty often. Now, let me show you this property that came up. And this property looks relatively turnkey for the most part, to be honest with you, right? They got auto flooring. I mean, there's some carpet, sure. So I want to do LVP, sure, but if it's brand new carpet, I'm not gonna fuss too much about it. And okay, let me see what's in this area. I mean, are there any broken windows around here? Are there any? This is what I just typically try to do a quick drive by to figure out whether or not there are any sort of broken glass windows. I mean, nothing jumps out to me right away, so that makes me feel a little bit better about the neighborhood. And in general, sometimes a little thing I do, guys, is I try to find all these other properties on the map or other stores, and then I just write neighborhood. Hey, sometimes there would be like some very sketchy things about the surrounding neighborhood. If you just look at like the gas station or CVS neighborhood, people safe. Okay. And there's no red flags in there. Sometimes there people will put in little comments in the reviews for the businesses nearby that specifically talk about whether or not they felt safe going into it. And that literally happens for like certain gas stations. So just something that I like to do to quickly understand what's going on in the area. And no red flags right away. Obviously, if I were to do diligence, I would go a little bit deeper. Okay, great. So now for this property is listed at 109. $109,000. Let me plug in some numbers here. 109,000. And for this property, the first thing I want to do is I want to get the market rents for this property. Okay. Now you can do it a couple ways, right? Now I already know from a friend that rents out in Greensboro right now for the Greensboro Housing Authority. Their housing authority already kind of states what is their payment standard. So you look up Greensboro Housing Authority 2025 payment standards, you'll see that there are two-bedroom properties. The payment standard is 1247. So I consider that as near the rent ceiling, right? 1247. I have a friend that just told me he was able to get closer to two bed, three bed. Let me write these numbers down. And I write these numbers down because my partners already know how I analyze these deals. So I just like to put that down right over here. And this is for Greensboro housing payment standards 2025. I'm going to write down 2025 right over here. Great. Now, now that I know my payment standard, I'm going to compare that against the market rent. So if I go to affordablehousing.com and I go to the market rent estimator and I plug in the address and the bedroom count, you can see right here that for 15 units within a 0.57 mile radius, the rent is 1101. So what I would recommend for you to do is, okay, I would argue that 1101 is probably my worst case scenario, right? But I would argue that because I've a friend that rents here already on Section 8 to Greensboro Housing Authority that's getting 1250 for rent, I would say my upper case scenario is 1250. And I want you to analyze this deal with those two data points, with those two levers for you to figure out, hey, how do I determine whether or not this is a deal, quote unquote, right? A deal for you. So let's say I got 109 for my rehab on this property. I got two toilets I'll probably renovate with higher pressure flush toilets. It looks brand new, but I'll probably put in, let's call it $100 for some touch-up paint in case that's needed. I'll put in, I don't need to put in a roof because that's covered by the HOA. I don't need to do anything else because I think everything else looks good. So that gives me total rehab about 1188. Great. That's nearly nothing, right? Now, for this property, let's underwrite with 1101 first. Let's get my taxes and my insurance right from the payment calculator. So if I go to my Redfin payment calculator, I can see that property taxes is 66 and homeowner insurance is 43. So I'll put 66 right here. And then even though it's 43, I'm going to multiply that by 1.2 because I'm assuming it'll be a little bit more expensive should I turn this into an investment property. Because I'm assuming that 43 estimate is an estimate for an primary residence property. So that's why I'm adding a 20% premium. Great. Now I got 5% for my maintenance, right? Usually, if single families, I drop them to 10%, but because there's a condo fee here that's addressing some of the big ticket items, such as a roof, I'm lowering it to 5% because I know my expenses coming out elsewhere. For this property, there's an HOA of 256. That's pretty hefty. Wow, 256. Great. So now you know why my maintenance is not higher than that. I got 8% for property management. I got 5% for vacancy expenses on this property with a 2.5% closing cost. Here in E22, I got renovations of 1188. So if I were to buy this property for 25% down in F19, I would pay a down payment of 109 $109,000 times 25%. So my down payment is $27,250, which means in case six, I'm financing my asking price in B4 minus my cash or seller in E19, that gives me a total of 25%. So I'm financing $81,750 with a 7.5% interest rate. If I assume that this number goes through as a rent for 1101, I would cash flow negative 42. So I would lose $42 a month with a negative 1.6% return. 109, 1188, 100%. Soleil, what are you doing out of bed? Yeah, go back to bed. Yeah, daddy's doing some work right now. Can you go back to bed, please? How can we play tomorrow? You don't go to bed. I'll put the song on for you and everything. We listen to grandma. Okay, thank you, Soleil. Let's go to bed, okay? All right. So I'll do one more scenario. Let's talk about my rent. What if it's 1250, right? The best case scenario that we talked about. At 1250, right? This is a swing. I went from negative $42 cash flow a month to 79 to $80 of positive cash flow a month, right? Assuming you get 1250. And that's a 3.1% cash on cash return, assuming you bought this product for 109 with 1188 rehab. And again, 25% down, 7.5% interest rate. So let's assume that holds true. How do you figure out what's the deal? Right? Let's say your cash on cash return is target is 8%. Now I'm not saying that everybody needs to target cash flow, because guess what? Some people buy and sell in California looking for a $1 million home. And if it breaks even every single month, that's okay because they say, hey, if it goes to 5% every single year, thank you. You want to read that one? This is not a book, so this is a fine book. It's a search book. Oh. Can you give me 5 minutes? I know. Want to watch me analyze this deal? Yeah. Okay, let's do it. All right. So if your target return is 3% and you're going to 8% as a target, you can lower the asking price to let's say $80,000. That's really high. Look. Thanks for showing me your work. So now at $92,000, you would be at 8%. Daddy, quick, read that book. Yeah, I'm gonna read that book to you. 1 second, okay? So this tells me if this property is a 2 bedroom, renting out for $1250, I will cash for 160. No, don't jump on that, Soleil. You're gonna fall. Thank you, Soleil. Thank you for listening. And you would be at 7.7% cash on cash return with a purchase price of $92,000. And your rehab on this property again stays the same with 25% down, 7.5% interest rate. So you have to pay $17,000 less than what is listed for in order for you to reach your target return at 8%. Obviously, that's year one. It could go up, right, as rents go up, but don't take that for granted, right? So let's say your interest rate dropped from 7.5 to 6.5%. See what happened to the cash and cash return number right there? It just jumped to 9.8. So if that ever happens, right, just know that your return
Please read that.
That's a slide.
Okay, mommy.
Puppy. Flowers. Good job. Sink. Pitcher. Banana. Good job. Elephant. Doll. Dress. Good job. You found them all. Way to go.
Okay, hold up.
So you have to understand that the interest rates for 30-year treasury
And
yields
how that
are affected by
can.
two things. It's by the 10-year yield
And
treasury
how
interest rate.
that and that.
That's a chair.
Daddy, find this.
And the spread between the 30-year yield, 30-year mortgage interest rate, and the 10-year yield.
Bye,
Historically, that's
I'm
oh,
going back to
okay.
patient.
Go back to vacation.
I'm going to home.
I see you later. I see you tomorrow. Okay.
Okay,
I
I'm
play with
going
you
to
tomorrow.
home.
Good night. Sweet dreams. I love you forever. All right. So the spread typically is between 1.5% to 2%. But guess what? That spread has gone as high as 3%. It's gone as high as 5.8% during the 1980s. So pay very close attention to what's happening because the bond market goes way faster than the Federal Reserve. Bond traders are way faster. So it could drop half a point overnight, and all of a sudden you can get headline news such as the tariffs are getting into a better place, there are more deals happening. And so with less risk, the spread narrows. So it could very possibly lower by 1 point overnight. So be very mindful because now your ability to pay for this deal just went up from the last scenario by $7,000 to $99,000. And that's to determine whether or not it's a deal, right? So my hope is this, right? I hope you analyze the same deal I analyzed today using the same spreadsheet. You guys want to copy the spreadsheet? Just go to affordablehousing.io, go to the get deal analysis tool, plug in your name, email, your phone number. That's the fastest way you get to copy the spreadsheet, right? And just put it on your own YouTube channel. Copy exactly what I did today. Because guess what? Someone's gonna ask you, hey, why do you think this is a deal? And at some point you can say, hey, I know this is a deal because I've been looking at the properties for the past 610 days. Might that give you some confidence that you know what you're doing? I certainly hope so. And again, right, when you have better information, such as your property management company or from other friends that are investing in the area, you can have higher level of confidence in what you're doing. And that's the difference between knowing a rent of 1,100 versus knowing a rent of 1,250. All right. I hope you all have an amazing Saturday. Spend some quality time with your family and friends today because that's what life is all about. All right. I'm gonna go tuck my daughters to bed. So have an amazing night, everybody. I'll see y'all tomorrow for day 611. Have a good one.